Hey, and welcome to Love Lake Norman and our online worship experience. My name is Ethan, and I'm so glad that you are here today. Love Lake Norman is a church that exists to help people find and follow Jesus. And so wherever you are in your faith journey, we are glad that you are tuning in to this today. We are in week 3 of a series called I Love My Church, and I love my church, and we hope that you love today's worship experience.
Shame is a prison as cruel as a grave. Shame is a robber and he's come to take my name. Oh, love is my redeemer, lifting me up from the ground. Love is the power where my freedom song is found. There ain't no with a smooth and velvet tongue. Oh, fear is a tyrant, he's always telling me to run. Oh, love is resurrection, oh, love is a trumpet sound. Love is my weapon, I'm gonna take my giants down. There ain't no grave gonna hold my body down.
through every battle, through every heartbreak, through every circumstance. I believe that you are my fortress. Oh, and you are my portion. And you are my hiding place. And I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe through every blessing, through every promise, through every breath I take. I believe that you are provider, oh, and you are protector. You are the one I love, oh, and I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are. And it's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. And it's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I believe you are. You're the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are. You're the way, yes you are, the truth, and the light. I believe you are. Well, it's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I believe you are. You're the way, and the truth, the light. I believe you are. You're the way, yes you are, Lord, the truth. You're the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, and the light. I believe you are.
Hey, I am so excited to invite you to our in-person worship experience happening on September 13th, 20th, and 27th. We're going to get together in the Oak Street Mill parking lot. We're going to sing some songs together. We are going to enjoy each other's company. We're going to laugh. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to hear a hopeful and helpful message. I would love to see you and your family there. Also, during those Sundays, we're going to have our Next Steps tent set up. That's going to be a place where you can come and you can find out about kids ministry, student ministry, crews, which are our small groups, and everything else that is happening here at Love Lake Norman. We hope to see you there.
We are in part 3 of our series called I Love My Church, and I really love this series. We've been talking about what the church is and what the church can be and what the church should be. And we really want you to live your best life, and we think that that happens when we're connected to a church like I want to describe today. One of our church values that's actually listed on the wall right behind me is that generosity is a lifestyle. And to be a generous church, to be a church like that, it needs to be full of people who are living generously, people who are growing in generosity. It is honestly something that I love about Love Lake Norman. It's something I love about this church most, is that there are so many people here with a generous spirit. So the question I want to ask today is, how do you become more generous? And why, in the first place, should you be a generous person? Why should you be a generous person at all? And to talk about that, to answer those questions, I want to tell you a few stories today. One of the incredible things about Jesus is that for a poor, homeless carpenter, he talked about money. He talked about issues of generosity more than almost anything else. He talked about it a lot. In fact, out of his 40 parables that he told, these 40 stories about what the kingdom of God is like and what life is like, do you know that 11 of those were explicitly about money? It's kind of amazing. He talked about money more than he talked about faith and prayer combined. That's crazy, isn't it? Like, you'd never pick that out. You'd never think of that, but that is true. And there is a very, very good reason for that I want to share with you today. When I was a young kid, I got an allowance. And like a lot of you did probably, I got an allowance, but my first real introduction to the concept of money was this game right here, Monopoly. And Pastor John Ortberg, who's a writer as well, tells an amazing story about Monopoly, and it resonates with me. It reminds me so much of my own experience when it comes to growing up with my brothers and sisters, and when it comes to money. I grew up playing Monopoly with my brother and sometimes my sister. Sometimes we'd have friends over and we would play occasionally. We'd like be able to talk our parents into playing, but most of the time they didn't really want to play Monopoly. But when you play Monopoly, and when I first learned how to play it, at first you play nice. You play by the rules. You let everybody have some money, you let everybody win a little bit, you let everybody get a motel, get a hotel, but eventually you discover the right way to play, like the real way to play. And the real way to play Monopoly is to have the goal of mercilessly, like ruthlessly pounding your opponents into the ground, ruthlessly destroying them and taking full control of the board. Like, that's the way you play that game. Total domination. It becomes a war of attrition. It becomes all about getting all of the cash for yourself, all of the motels for yourself, all of those incredible hotels, all for yourself. That's how you play Monopoly to win. And I remember winning, and I remember maybe for the first time winning and feeling that total sense of control, that total sense of success. And I had broken down my brother and sister and just turned them into a puddle of tears, and I had it all. That's how you play to win Monopoly. Now, the problem with that is that you can never get enough of it. You always want to play again. I just wanted to keep on playing. I just wanted to play again and again and again and experience that feeling that came with dominating my opponents. And it's hard to get up and walk away from a board like that. It's hard to get up when you win like that. It's like that in life. For some of us, we can't get up from the table, and pursuing mastery over the game has actually caused the game to master you. Pursuit of money and success and stuff can actually chain you to the table that you're sitting there with. And this is why Jesus spoke so much about money. There's something that's wrapped up in there that is so connected to Jesus in his heart that he knew something about it. He knew something about what we deal with and what goes on the inside of our lives when it comes to money, when it comes to generosity. And what he knew was this, that it was connected with the heart, that it's connected with your heart. And so there was this one day where Jesus was talking to people. He was speaking about God's kingdom as compared to the world's kingdom. He was talking to people just like you and me, people who were caught up in the game, who were trying to maneuver their piece around the board of life as well as they could to get as much as they could before the other person got more than them. And they were all concerned about themselves. They were concerned about what they were going to eat. They were concerned about what they were going to wear. They were concerned about what their neighbors had that they didn't have. All of those things going on in all the lives of the people that Jesus spoke with. It's just like us. And here's the words he said. From the book of Matthew, it says this. He says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." So in this passage, he gives us two options. In the first one, he says, don't do this, but I'm going to tell you it's an option. It's an option, and a lot of people live with option number one, and option number one is this: storing up for yourselves treasure on earth. That's how he talks about it, storing up for yourselves treasures on earth. I read an article in Leadership Journal about this man. I want to share his story with you, and it says this. It's called The Myth of More, and it says that all he ever really wanted in life was more. He wanted more money. So he parlayed inherited wealth into a $1 billion pile of assets. He wanted more fame. And so he broke into the Hollywood scene and soon became a filmmaker and a star. He wanted more sensual pleasures, and so he paid handsome sums to indulge his every sexual urge. He wanted more thrills. So he designed and built and piloted the fastest aircraft in the world. He wanted more power, so he secretly dealt political favors so skillfully that 2 U.S. presidents became his pawns. All he ever wanted was more. He was absolutely convinced that more would bring him true satisfaction. Unfortunately, history shows otherwise. He concluded his life emaciated, colorless, sunken chest, fingernails in grotesque, inches-long corkscrews, rotting black teeth, tumors, innumerable needle marks from his drug addiction. Howard Hughes died believing the myth of more. He died a billionaire junkie, insane by all reasonable standards. You know, Jesus' words are prophetic when we think about a guy like that. He's saying, hey, look, don't put all of your effort storing up treasure for yourself here on earth, because it is all going to go away. It is all going to eventually disappear. All of it is going to disappear from your life. All of it. You cannot take any of it with you. And Howard Hughes died with a $2 billion estate, and he didn't take any of it with him. All he had was a sad ending to a selfish life. Now, we can talk about him, but isn't that our temptation too? That more is better. That if only I had that bigger house or that better car or the clothes that looked better or that country club membership that was more desirable or the vacation that was a little bit better than last year's vacation. And it's easy on a Sunday morning or whenever you're watching this to say, I need to do better at that. It's easy to kind of go, yeah, I know, I need to do better. But then Monday rolls around. And all of the pressures and all of the temptations are right back in our faces, and it's easy to get pulled back in and sucked into this world that says that more is better, that I just need a little more. John D. Rockefeller, who was the railroad investor, the billionaire, was asked this question. I think he gave such an insightful response. The question he asked was, how much is enough? His response was, just a little bit more. How much is enough? Just a little bit more. It's a very honest answer. Jesus had a way of coming in and sticking a pin in that balloon. He says it all goes away. It's all going to rot. It's all going to rust. It's all going to either get stolen or go to somebody else. And when you set your heart on building up stuff, when you pour your heart into accumulating the toys, accumulating the bank account, and all of that is dedicated to you, the result is this, that the benefit is only temporary and the treasure will inevitably disappear. It will. And Jesus has this laser focus where he's pointing that out to you and to me. And you know what he calls those of us who are in that boat, who decide, I'm going to put my treasure into earthly things. I'm going to store up my treasure here on earth. You know what he calls you? It's one of the strongest words he uses in the Bible. It's one of the strongest words he uses in all of his words that are recorded in the Gospels. He calls you, if that's who you are, he calls you a fool. He says, you fool. It's not even in a condescending way. It's just in a reality kind of way. Like, that's just the reality. You're a fool. You know what a fool is? A fool is someone who knows the right thing to do and doesn't do it. Jesus is saying, look, you know the right thing to do here. You know what's right. Don't be a fool. All of this goes away. Every single penny. Now, he's not saying don't store up anything. He's not saying forget about making money. No, he's just saying what are your priorities? And he offers a second option too. He says you can store up yourself treasure on earth, but you can also do this. You can store up for yourself treasures in heaven is what he says. That's how he calls it. And I want to tell you another story about a different person from the 20th century. There's another man in the 20th century, famous for totally different reasons. This man grew up with virtually unlimited options. He could have pointed his life in any direction and made it a success, but he had an encounter with the cross of Jesus that made all of those dreams look small. Instead of pursuing wealth, instead of pursuing the life of comfort that all of his friends were pursuing, Jim Elliot prepared his entire life to bring the message of Jesus to a tribe who'd never been contacted before by anyone else from the outside. And so in 1955, Jim Elliot and 4 of his missionary friends made first contact with this tribe called the Auca tribe in Ecuador. And he radioed back after a few days that things were going well, and that was the last anyone ever heard from them. They were killed not long after that by members of that tribe. Now, by many standards, this was a total failure, especially if that story stopped there, but it didn't. His wife, Elizabeth, and some others who were friends of hers moved there into that jungle, and they began to live among this tribe. They eventually developed relationships and began to just love people there with the love of Christ. They established a church there, and eventually many of those tribe members came to know Jesus Christ and came into a relationship with their Creator, and they had their eternities altered forever. All because of one obedient man who was obedient to God, and a group of people that spurned their trappings of wealth and pursued something much more noble, much more lofty than that. And God used something awful to do something amazing. And someone who could have stored up for themselves earthly treasure so easily and lived this comfortable life decided that those weren't the deposits that he wanted to make, that he wanted to make an eternal impact with his life. Those two stories are night and day, aren't they? And the famous quote by Jim Elliot is this: "He is no fool who would give the thing he cannot keep to find what he can never lose." He's no fool who will give the thing that he can't keep to find what he can never lose. You know, one day, just like the game, everything's going to go back in the box. One day, we will all discover that it all goes back in the box. All the money, all the toys, all the beautiful things that we have, we're going to realize they were just ours for a while and they have to go back in the box, and one day they're going to go to somebody else and they're going to get to play with them and use them for a while. But one day for every single one of us, it all goes back into the box. Are we all called to become a missionary to Ecuador? No. But let me tell you what this starts with, that each one of us can start in this place and basically say this, that what you have, that what I have is less important than what I do with what I have. What you have is less important than what you do with it. What are you going to do with what you've been given? What are you going to do with what you have? Why give? Why be a generous person? I started out asking that question. Why be generous? Because God is the owner and you are the manager. You're just the manager for a while, and he's decided, I'm going to give you this and allow you to steward it for me. I'm going to give you this and allow you to manage what I've given you. That you're the manager and that God is the owner. Why give? Because he asks us to. And there are a million places in the scriptures that talk about giving, that talk about generosity. I just want to point you to one more. It's from the book of Malachi, chapter 3, and this is what it says. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty. And by the way, this is the only place in the scripture where God invites us to test him. This is the only area that he says, test me in this. And here's what he says, test me and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. Test me in this. He says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Tithe is a word for 10%. And I know for my family, we've just established that a monthly routine, that's going to come first. And that is not easy to do. It's been a long process for us, but that's going to come first. But I will say this, that the discipline of giving to God first brings blessing, not simply financial blessing, but relational blessing and all kinds of blessing in other ways. And there are so many people in this church and other people that I know who have said the same thing and done the same thing, and they will all to a person come back and say, the blessing that I have received when I began to prioritize my generosity, it is unbelievable. It is life-changing, and I would never go back again. Let me ask you another question and answer it. Why give here? Why give? Not only why be generous, but why be generous to your local church? Jesus makes it clear, where you put your treasure is where your heart goes. We kind of think it's the opposite. We tend to assume that it's the opposite, that where I put my heart is where my money's going to follow, my treasure's going to follow. No, he says, where you invest, that's where your heart is going to go. So think about this with me. Where are you investing yourself when it comes to what you've been given, your resources, your finances? Where are you putting those? That's where your heart is going. That's where your heart goes. Where you spend is where your heart is going. So when you are able to invest in the local mission of the church, you know where your heart's going? It's going to people in our community. God is softening your heart for people around you. He's engaging, he's helping you engage with his mission. And your heart's becoming more generous, and your heart's becoming a little bit more like his. Let me just say these things. When you give at our church, the first is this: you make a local impact. Your heart is going into the community. And the second thing is this, that you're giving to an organization that's transparent. We work really hard at being transparent and when it comes to how to handle our giving. We're just an open book. But the third thing is this: when you give, you invest in something that lasts, something that's permanent. You're storing up for yourself treasure in heaven where moth and rust are not going to take it away, where it's not going to be stolen, that you're going to make a lifelong, eternal impact. What you have is just less important than what you do with what you have. What you have is just not the main thing. Some are going to have a big pile, some are going to have a little pile, some are going to be somewhere in between. It doesn't really matter. What you have is less important than what you are doing with what you have. And we want to be a generous church. That's why I love this church. It's one of the reasons is because we are a generous church and we want to continue to grow in our generosity to the community, not so we can pat ourselves on the back, not so we can say, hey, look how great we are, not so we can say, look what we have that they don't. No. Our generosity is for one reason and one reason only, and it is so that many will find and follow Jesus. Let's pray. God, we can be generous because you were generous to us first. Our generosity is always only a response to the giving that you did in our lives and in our world first. And you have given everything to us, starting and ending with Jesus himself. That you gave him to this world, knowing what would happen. And yet, because of your deep love for us, because of your commitment to loving us no matter whether we return that to you or not, you made a way for us to be invited into a relationship with you that is priceless. God, may you grow us individually in our generosity and our giving. May we be a generous church that the community around us looks and says, wow, look at who God is. Look at what he has done. Not look at how great Love Lake Norman is, but look how great God is and what he's doing in our community. I want to be a part of that. God, would you continue to bless and work and move in a mighty way? I pray this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
So every week we take up an offering. Now we view this as an act of worship and as a response to God's goodness. And so I would love to invite you to do that. And there's two ways that you can. You can go to our website, lovelkn.org, and you can find the Give tab, or you can text the dollar amount to 84321. Let me say thank you for your generosity. And thank you once again for being here today for our online worship experience. We look forward to seeing you next week, either at our in-person worship experience at 9 a.m. or back online at 10 a.m. Have a great day. See you soon.